Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm JP Tong, and welcome to today's Detox Your Mind, the workshop. Last week I spoke about regret, and this week I'm going to talk about guilt. Yes, guilt. So, as we all know, a lot of times we may say something or do something, or even not say something or not do something when we know that we should have. And because we decided to make that we decide to make that specific choice, we regret it. And because we regret, and then it kind of snowballs and it becomes guilt. Now, a guilt, so what's the difference between a regret and guilt? Guilt is something that has to do with morals, one's morals. When we feel that, oh, I should have done it for the sake of this other person, out of certain ethics, it is morally uh, good to have done this or not done or not do this. So because morals are involved, then it becomes guilt. So it is an emotion. It is an emotion. So how many times have we let our guilt take the back burner because we do not know how to handle it? And a lot of times when we let it sit in the back burner or deny it or try to suppress it and hope that one day it will disappear. Now, unfortunately, and both fortunately, well, unfortunately, it will not disappear. And fortunately, it's good because why? It only shows that we have conscience. We have conscience in our mind. Because if we have never felt guilty about anything, either you are a saint or you have no remorse, you have no conscience of your wrongdoing. Okay, these are the only two. So, and a lot of times morals are not something that is taught, but it is something that we feel deep down in us that whatever that we have done or not done is not right, is morally not right. Okay, so that's a difference. Now, why am I talking about guilt in this Detox Your Mind, the workshop? Is because a lot of times when we do not resolve our guilt, over time it will eat into us. We will feel it will make us feel very, very insecure. There'll be a lot of fear that will come in. It may also create a lot of anger in many cases. And for some people, they may go into a depression for a long period of time. So it doesn't help us have a clarity of the mind if we do not handle the guilt that is in us. Now, we must always remember this. Excuse me. We must always remember this that whatever it is that we have chosen to do or not to do that is creating that sense of guilt, the moment has passed. The moment has passed. Suppressing it is not going to help. It will make us feel worse at the end of the day. It will, no matter how hard we try to suppress it. Okay, and it's not healthy when we suppress our negative feelings. So, what do we do then? Well, first of all, we confront it. Confronting it means to acknowledge it that, okay, that was not the wisest choice that I made. And if it helps, write it down. Write it down. Okay? Or if not, acknowledge it and think about it. And think about how moving along or moving forward, how am I going to make sure that I am not going to repeat that same mistake or that same choice that would lead me to feel guilty again? Okay, so acknowledging it is the first thing. And if you really feel sorry, you know deep down that it was not the wisest choice and you really want to do something about the guilt. Obviously, we cannot rewind, we cannot go back to the past to redo it. So instead of beating up ourselves, which some people like to do that, or go into a denial mode, um, to heal that guilt and to let go of that guilt, it is very, very important to acknowledge and to not make the same choice again that will create that same sense of guilt. Okay, it is a conscious effort that we need to put into this. And that is why mindfulness training is very, very important. Because why? When we do mindfulness training on a daily basis, be it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we are learning how to control the mind just by focusing on the breath and being mindful that every time when our mind drifts, we pull it back to the breath. And that's it. So it's not about, not thinking about anything in the mind. It's not about that. It's about realizing, being aware of of how the mind drifts from the focus. So every time when you drift and you're mindful about it, you actually build a you improve your awareness level. And because of that, you will notice that when you want to deal with or handle any of these emotions, such as guilt, which is huge, you will be able to control the mind and focus on what you need to do in order to heal, resolve it, internally resolve it. And moving forward, be mindful about not making that same choice. So, because I have met many people through the course of being in Kechara, where I noticed that many people find it very, very difficult to acknowledge a certain emotional pain that they go through. And a lot of times, especially guilt, it is so difficult to think back, to recollect what had happened because it would trigger that sense of guilt, that emotional suffering and that pain to arise. And I noticed that many people do not have that resilience and that strength to revisit that that part of them again because the pain inside is too much to handle. That is why mindfulness training will allow you to have that resilience to look at it very objectively. Look at it, watch that emotion, put that emotion aside, and be mindful about not making that same choice again. And when you do that, and when you're mindful, every time when you're mindful of not making that same choice, slowly over time, that guilt of yours will slowly melt away. It will slowly melt away because why? Well, think about it. If you were to consult or if you were to console a person who's going through a sense of guilt, what would you tell that person? So, same thing applies to ourselves. What do I tell ourselves? It is very important that we learn to forgive ourselves because a lot of times, um, I notice that we tend to not forgive ourselves and we're very harsh with ourselves and we forget to practice compassion with ourselves. We forget that. We are very good at advising people to forgive themselves and to show compassion for themselves. But when it comes to ourselves, it becomes a huge challenge. So now that you know about it, it is important to be mindful, to be very, very mindful to practice self compassion, compassion for oneself. And that is something that we can think about when we take some time out, when we spend some time alone. Think about the past, and specifically about the sense of guilt that is still in us and we still haven't quite addressed it yet. It is very, very important. Okay, so do we have any questions so far? All right, great. Now, what are the guilt that we're talking about? Well, you can either, like I say, um, do some journaling. The journaling is actually very, very powerful when we write down our thoughts and when we actually see it. The process of writing it down and seeing and just reading it, that itself is it's the first step to healing. Okay, a lot of times you say, I'll just think about it. Well, if it works for you, great. But if you kind of take your own sweet time to work on it, then perhaps it's not really working for you. So again, it's very important to be brutally honest with yourselves. Very, very honest with yourselves and know what works and what doesn't work for you. Okay? So do that. Now, if you can help, if you need to apologize to a person because you did something or you didn't do something and that guilt is eating into you, then perhaps you can actually make amends by talking to that person if the person is still around. If the person is no longer around, or if it's a situation where there's nobody to talk to, all right, then again, like what I said earlier, be mindful, always be mindful not to make that same choice again. Okay, but if the person is around, then talk to the person and apologize. And a sincere apology comes with the conviction to change. See, that is very important. That's why I've always said, great, because when people apologize to me or when I apologize to the person, it's always about now, how do I know whether or not this is going to be a sincere apology? That will only happen through time. So when we assess whether that person is sincere or not with the apology, we have to see that change. And that change has to be consistent. Has to be consistent. Otherwise, that is the apology is not sincere. All right, so there's something to think about. So, and that's how you assess whether or not that person or even ourselves are sincere with our apology. Because if we are not consistent, then obviously we were not sincere. We may have felt sincere at that moment, but it was not strong enough to actually see us through to be consistent. Because if we feel so bad, so bad that we can't sleep, we can't eat, we can't function because we feel so bad and so guilty. Deep down, there will be a shift to change. If you still don't feel that need or that urgency to change, then again, take some time out, take some me time out, and think about it. Why is it that you do not feel, although you feel guilty, but it's still not enough to make that fundamental shift, that change. That is very important. So, and I've been asked that question as well. Oh, how do I, what do I need to do, or what do I need to do to make myself want to change? I can't tell you how. I can't tell you. It has to come from you. That realization of wanting to change so badly is because you do not want to feel that guilt inside of you. And you don't want it so badly. That's why you want to change. And this is something that nobody can help us do that. It has to come from us. There is no, um, our friends can't be there to keep cheering us on. Our friends, people around us cannot make us feel that burning need that, yes, I need to change. That must come from your self contemplation. And because you realize that whatever that you've done really, it really ate into your conscience that you don't want that feeling anymore. So you actually make it you'll make it a conscious effort, and you have that strong conviction of not doing it again. So it has to be up to that level of that, of feeling very strongly that, nope, I'm not going to do it. By hook or by crook, I'm going to kick myself and I'm not going to do it. So we have to do a lot of self contemplation to arrive to that realization. Okay. So, well, again, like I say, apology, apologize. If the person is around, apologize. All right. And again, make sure that you are consistent with not making that same choice again. And of course, learn from that guilt. Learn. Everything that we do, sometimes, as I've said in last week's program about regret, yes, we're constantly making choices. When the time we wake up, we decide: do I check my phone? Do I go brush my teeth? Do I go to the bathroom first? It's constant. We're bombarded with having to make choices constantly. All right. And a lot of times certain choices are on automatic mode. And there's certain choices that we go, maybe I should do something different. So again, we are making choices every second with the time we wake up all the way to the time that we go to sleep. So if we are not mindful, if we're not trained to be mindful or aware, there are certain times where we may make choices that we regret. And again, like I said, if it has to do with morality, then we'll feel guilty. We feel guilty. Oh, I should have done that, or I should have been there, or I shouldn't have said this, or I should have said that. So because we do not usually spend time, again, to practice being mindful. So yeah, there are some of us that will actually choose, make a choice that was not the wisest at that moment. What's not. So again, see, so for those of you who are still not convinced about mindfulness training, see, these are some of the benefits. And because you're so mindful, every time when you actually catch yourself before you want to say something or want to do something or not, you will actually be mindful, and you'll be mindful of the consequences that come with every choice we make. Every choice we make. Okay, so again, that will help. So what have we learned? So we have learned to be more mindful. when we of our choices on a daily basis. Very, very mindful about it. And it takes, you know, consistent effort to catch ourselves, right? So for those of us who, or those, you know, those of us who like to talk a lot and, you know, and you go ballistic and sometimes you're not mindful, well, yeah, you may say certain things not, that are not very tactful and you may hurt someone. Okay, so learn to be mindful. So that's what that's one of the things we can learn. One of the things. And also what other things can we learn about ourselves? For example, you should have done something, but you chose not to, or you should have said something, but you chose not to. So again, what have you learned? What was stopping you from not doing what you're supposed to do, or not saying what you're supposed to say? So what was in the way? So when we check our mind and we realize, is it because of fear? Is it because you didn't feel confident? You didn't feel that, you know, you had that right to say something or to do something? So whatever it is that was in the way of you doing the right thing or saying the right thing, again, check in on that and learn from that so that in the future, if a similar situation arises, then you will know, you'll be mindful of the choice that you're going to make at that time, and there will be no more guilt. Okay, so learning from the past is very important as well. And that is part of detoxing the mind, where we learn from the choices that we make in the past. Okay? And another good approach to healing one's guilt is to practice gratitude, to be grateful, to be grateful. Because when you are grateful, well, number one is you will look at the more positive things in your life. Because, yes, I do understand sometimes it's very, very difficult to switch off of that guilt that is eating into you. I know it's very difficult. And it's not easy to kind of divert your attention to something else. So another way to divert your attention to something else would be using, well, practicing gratitude. And hence, um, I have been promoting that during the morning mindful meditation, where we keep a gratitude journal. The gratitude journal helps us develop a habit of looking at positive things in our lives. Okay, being grateful of everything that we have, the electricity, the air conditioning, the furniture, you know, even as simple as clean air, clean air, clean water, which we always take for granted. Um, there's so many things. Having clothing to wear, having a sofa to sit on, and having a clean floor, having a roof over me when I sleep. And these are the things that we usually take for granted. And we are so loaded. We are so loaded with so much abundance that a lot of times we take it for granted. And we're always looking out for what else it is that we don't have when we already have so much. That helps shift our focus to more positive things in our lives. And that also helps us heal from that guilt, that emotional part of us. Okay? Because a lot of times when we become very emotional, we are clouded. We will be clouded in our mind and we will not make the right choice. And if we keep feeding into that emotion, we become we will spiral down, and that is not good for us. That's not good for us. Okay, and we may make the wrong choices in life. Okay, so that guilt may manifest to chronic depression. It may manifest into anger, into rage, um, anxiety. Okay, and some people even have insomnia, and perhaps even a leading into a eating disorder. So it can spiral down. So that's why it is always important to arrest it and to handle it before it manifests to other things that are not beneficial for us. Okay, so we can do that. And like I said earlier, what also helps is to stop bashing yourself and practice self-compassion. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Everyone makes mistakes. Trust me. Everyone makes mistakes. Okay, unless you're a saint, all of us makes mistake. So I'm not saying that, yeah, that it's okay to continue doing wrong things. What I'm saying is forgive ourselves. Practice self-compassion, forgive. No one is perfect. So yes, that's how we learn. We learn through choices. We learn through choices that we make. And if the choices are not beneficial, we learn. And even if it's beneficial, we also learn. We also learn that, okay, so this works. Okay, this doesn't work. So, and that's very important. Okay, so for those of you who like to bash yourself, well, shift. Focus on self-compassion. Okay? Focus on forgiving yourself. Okay? Now, I think that's all I'm going to talk about guilt. So, if you do have any questions, by all means, you can leave a comment at the comment section. Okay? And I will answer them for you. And I would suggest for you to take some time to contemplate on this topic, guilt, and think about it deeply. Well, it may take many, many sessions before you can go all the way deep down to address it and make sure that you do not repeat that same choice that led to that guilt. And then see what happens from there. Forgive yourself, tell yourself, yes, you've learned from it. Now you will not make that same choice again. And then you move forward and see what happens and practice gratitude. Okay, so that is something that we can do for now. Okay, at 9:45, I'm gonna have a closed workshop with those of you who want me to guide you on that contemplation. Okay, so I will guide you on the contemplation about addressing the guilt that you have. Okay, so and from the tool that you learn from my guided contemplation, you can actually you can do that again in your own sweet time. Okay, but I would advise that that you do uh, that you have some practice. It is advisable that you have already practiced some sort of mindfulness training or meditation where you have a good grasp of controlling your mind. Because otherwise, when the emotions arise, when I guide you on addressing topics like guilt, you will be drifted away from that contemplation and you become very emotional and you will not be able to fully benefit from the workshop. Okay, so if you have liked this session, please share with everyone on your Facebook page because you never know who needs to hear this and decide to do something about it. Okay, and again, if you do like our online workshops, please sponsor the workshop. There's a click at the end of this video. It is through your sponsorship, through your contribution, we can sustain our online programs. Okay, so on that note, I'll see you next Saturday, same time. Take care. Bye bye.